Welcome, everybody, to a new episode of the Dragoncast. My name is Brian Daniels, and I'm here with my podcast partner in crime, Mr. Victor Salazar, coming all the way from the great state of California. And Victor, today we have a very special guest on this episode of the Dragoncast. We have Mr. Master Daniel Pesina on the show. He is none other than the man himself that played Johnny Cage, Scorpion, Sub-Zero,
Yep.
Tile, and he worked on the first and second Mortal Kombat games. And Daniel, it's so great to have you on this podcast, man. Thank you so much for joining us here up there in Chicago.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's been a long time in the making. I know, we're friends, so it's always like, yeah, I'm gonna have you on. Okay, well, let's do it, and then we get sidetracked with stuff, and yeah. But thanks for having me on. Finally,
and that's exactly how it usually is, Just you're hanging out, and oh yeah, let's get together, and then we start doing our own thing before we finally get together and chat it up,
Yeah. Especially with the, we're gonna date the program by. We're in the midst of COVID, so that has also made it a little difficult,
Yeah, I know. We were just talking before the show, and about I haven't seen Dan face to face in person since Louisville Arcade Expo back in March of last year. It's been crazy. I know, you've been busy doing your martial arts academy there up in Chicago, training your students and things like that, and I'm sure you've even had to try to find some ways to figure out how you got to do that. I mean, this has been really uncharted territory for a lot of people, but the good part about it is, we're in the digital age, so we have ways to do things just like how we're doing this show right now virtually here. And I'm sure for you, Dan, this has been you've had to learn a lot of new things with technology and trying to figure out how to teach your students and things like that. Before we get into your illustrious career with Mortal Kombat, I wanted to ask you about that. What challenges have you faced in this past year with COVID and the pandemic, doing your martial arts up there in Chicago with your students? How's that been for you?
I basically went from caveman to know some things about social media and the wonderful world it offers, which is basically more work than real life. I had to learn, get on there, got to pay attention to your Twitch, got to pay attention to your Instagram, got to pay attention to your Facebook, got to be on Twitter. And I realized they can't all be the same. It gets boring if you're all the same. So if you're on 5 platforms, you have to make material for 5 platforms. It's not
That's right.
Just send it over or basically like that. People want to see new stuff, because they're stuck at home too. So even with teaching, a lot of people, classes, there's basically no classes. I have private still running because they're one-on-one. So that's pretty good. But otherwise the classes are nothing. So I have to make time to film stuff for classes. And usually my style of teaching is usually my student walks in, and we're going to work. We have stuff generally we were going to work on, but then they might have hey, I want to really work on this. We're doing this. I have, problems with this part. Okay, let me tune it and make it personal to the people.
Right.
And this morning, we were just one of the guys was just he's no wonder there's thousands of styles, because really the style is tuned into different types of people. You can have a little bit of differences, and you got to just tune it and make it their own style. So,
that's what makes martial arts amazing too, is that it caters to the individual to a sense, where your body type, your body style, your movements can be contoured into particular teaching styles of the master, of the teacher, the sensei. So it's very interesting to see how using video and being able to work with your students has created a different dynamic now, and how a teacher and a student can interact and teach and learn and pick things up. So I'm very interested to see how much that has changed maybe your perspective and how to teach from afar, if that's even possible, or if it's something that it would be better to have a one-on-one physicality to it. How would that alter the way you teach?
That is also something we were just talking about with my students the other day. One of the guys, comes in for his private. once a week. And he's just like, he goes, I don't know how people, and two, most of my students, like private students, have martial art background. Like they come from different styles. I have like a guy who's fifth. I have a couple of guys who have third and fifth Dan in Aikido.
Wow.
Third and fifth degree black belt in Aikido. They have martial art knowledge. I got guys who did Hapkido, second Dan and first Dan. So they're black belts already from a lot of different systems.
Oh, wow.
Because with the way, being in martial arts for such a long time made me realize that, traditional martial arts are basically all the same. There's only a certain way to make a fist. If you make it different, you're going to break your wrist or break your hand. So really, we as martial artists share so many things that we do not realize, like how much we really share and how much we're really different. And you're really different because of just your physicality. You're different. I'm different than you. You're different than me. You might be taller. You might be stronger through the shoulders. You might have better legs, but different. But two, getting back to the question, it was like, he comes in and he's like, you know what? He's like, because I let them videotape the lesson. So take it home and practice, because it's always more fun if they can get what's
good. I like that.
As opposed to me teaching the same thing over and over can be really boring for me.
Yeah.
I goof around and I say, well, if you want me to hold your hand, that's the $1 million an hour lesson.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Otherwise, because I'm gonna really like be bored and kind of teach you the same thing over and over. That really, for me, that sucks. It's not really,
not fun.
I'm really exploring the martial art world with you. Yeah. But he was like, man, he goes, when you do it, he goes, when it's a live lesson, I can see all the little nuances of stuff. He goes, but when I go back and reference, if you didn't tell me that, I wouldn't see that, like with a video camera. He's like, wow. There's no way to see the really, really minute details. But again, this is for somebody who has experience. This guy who I was training has 12 years martial art experience. So he's not a beginner. It's not one or two. He has 12. So some of the guys have, 20 years experience.
Oh, wow.
In martial arts. So they're like, and then later on this morning, I mentioned to a different guy, I was like, yeah, isn't that weird like that? And they're like, yeah. He goes, you can only get so far with Zoom. If you really want to advance your studies, probably the same with guitar or any other art form, drawing or anything like that, you have to really make a habit. You don't have to do it all the time, but you have to come in and physically be in the same and feel the energy and feel the little things, the nuances.
Exactly.
I
agree. I mean, it's there's so many things that it's kind of like, I'm a huge nerd. I like playing tabletop games, and I like playing games online with people. And I'll tell you what, like, I'm old school. I like playing video games with people in person. I don't like doing this online stuff because I like to talk trash, okay? And you don't get that same energy of trash talk when you're doing it online versus when they're sitting right there, they feel it, and they get the heat, So, I mean, there's just so many things that it's just not the same, and you're absolutely right. But I will say, I mean, the good thing, though, is with Zoom and you letting your students be able to record you is they can kind of rewind and kind of do that slow motion and really see your movement frame by frame by frame. So that probably would help them in a little bit of a way to get that, to be able to nail those movements down or those motions down better by seeing it frame by frame by frame. But there's also sometimes you just got to see it in real time too, and right in front of you. So I get that. Absolutely.
I think the slow motion though, works better for those that don't have that experience. Like Daniel, I said, they're still trying to get the form right. They're still trying to, get the motion, correct. And are not really picking up those nuances, those small details that will make, take you to that next level. So I think it's so interesting to me to see how, teachers from all walks of life are now adjusting to how they have to, mold their craft to show the younger generation how it's done. Or in some cases, just people in general, just how do you show them? How am I going to teach this?
Yeah.
And martial arts being such a physical type sport, art, I was wondering, does it make a difference? And it looks like it definitely does.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just the learning about social media. Like, I've been on Twitch for 3 weeks now.
Yeah.
And just to learn the mechanism for broadcasting and doing like things like you're doing is like, holy cow, that's a skill in itself.
It's a skill in itself, yeah.
It is. Yeah.
A lot of people like watching this, just forget that to order just for you guys to do this, it's work. There's work even before there's work. It's there's more work before, and then you do the work, and then there's more work after.
Yeah,
that's absolutely right. Oh, Brian can attest to that, right, Brian?
Oh yeah, I've done Twitch for a long time, and I'm going to be getting back into doing it again here soon. And I mean, yeah, I wish it was as easy as pushing a button, and it's not.
Yeah.
It's not at all. And I know I kind of helped you a little bit with your Twitch, and I've seen you're getting a little more successful on there, which is fantastic. I'm glad to see you on there. It's great to see you do the live streaming you do with your training and teaching and things like that. I gotta ask you though, where did all this begin for you with martial arts? Where did it start? What was was this like a family thing? Was this something your parents were into? Where did the passion for martial arts really begin for you in your life?
I think around 6 years old, I really fell in love with the martial art because on Sunday mornings, back in the day, black and white TV, there was a television series called Charlie Chan the Detective, where this fat Chinese guy would find, the mystery of the murder or solve some crime.
Yeah.
During one of the episodes, I remember him throwing somebody with a judo throw.
Nice.
And I was just watching it with my dad, and my dad's served in the U.S. military, and I was like, "Wow, that's so cool, Dad!" And my dad was like, probably didn't really think about it, but he was like, "Oh, I could show you that." And so, and then naturally he flipped over one time for me because I'm 6 years old. You can't really throw an adult at 6 years old. You teach kids self-defense, but that doesn't really work. It's cool, the confidence, but in reality, don't be disappointed when it does not work.
Right.
He flipped over, and I was like, "Oh, cool! Can I do it again?" And my dad's like, "Nah, I don't want to do this again."
That's funny.
Because I'm a kid too, so I'm going to want to throw him like 100 times. And
right. Yeah.
And he's going to be jumping on my mom's going to get mad at us too.
Right.
But then I really fell in love with it. So later on, my 2 older brothers started taking like judo for self-defense.
Right.
My dad thought it was a good idea to take judo because it was always the gentle way. It's not really aggressive until you activate it. So,
right. Yeah.
And I wanted to take it, but I was like 8 or 9 years old. And there were no kids classes. My brothers I'm like the accident, and then Braden, who's my youngest brother, is also an accident. Yeah. Meaning there's 8 years difference between me and my older brothers.
Yeah.
The youngest older brother is 8 years older than me.
Wow.
I'm 7 years older than Carlos. So Carlos and I are like the accidents. And my 2 older brothers are like 2 years apart. So they were
gotcha.
You know what I mean? They were the plant babies.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
I hear you.
Right.
So I couldn't do this. I couldn't take lessons. And then finally I kept bugging my dad. And, my brothers took judo for like a month, and quit.
Yeah.
And it wasn't for them. But I bugged him, and he was like, my dad was like, later on, he was like, I just thought you'd be like your brothers. I'm going to take you to judo. You're going to not want to do it after a month, and then we're done. And then you don't have to bug me because you've been bugging me for years over this.
Right.
So he takes me, and said, I did not realize. He's like, eventually, it was back in the day. There was no really, I was like 10 years old, going to turn 11 that year. And I had to train with the teenagers, 13 and up. And the guy, when I came in for lessons, sorry for the long story, but I came in for lessons, the guy looks at me, and I was a small, even for an 11-year-old. And the guy looks at my dad, and he's like, "This is for teenagers." And my dad's like, "He's a teenager." And he looks at my dad and dad, and he's like, "He's not a teenager." And they're talking like that, and my dad sees that the guy has a military tattoo on it. He's like, "Oh, you're in the military, you're Army." He goes, "I was in the Army during the Korean War, and this guy served like I think in Vietnam or something around that. It was before wasn't Vietnam yet, but they clicked. You know what I mean? He's like, oh, you're in the Army. I was in the Army. And then just kind of like, I'll try out your son. He goes, he's young. We'll put him in the teenage class because there's no kids class.
Yeah.
And if it works out, he can stay. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. My dad's like, yeah. And two, you know, if it doesn't work out, I don't have to drive him to lessons.
Yeah.
You know, I'm 11 years old now. But I kept at it. And then eventually my dad, you know, when I was 12 years old, after a year, my dad taught me how to take the bus to get to my lessons. You know, because that's you know, back in the day, that's what you did.
That's what you did. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I really wanted to do that. I had to cut grass and take what little money I did and give it to my dad, you know, the $2 a month for cutting the neighbor's grass. And he would pay, you know, the $70 or $80 a month for lessons. But, you know, that was part of the thing. And
that's part of the deal.
Yeah.
And so, I did that. And it was just, you know, so my first love of martial art is judo.
That's awesome.
Wow. That's so crazy how back in the day, that's what you had to do. You had to pay your way, young man. Come on, you want to go to the lessons? Just learn to ride the bus. You better go cut some grass. Oh, children of today, you hear that, man? That's how it used to be do it back in the day. It's not like that no more. You don't see a 12-year-old riding the bus on his own anymore, man. Yeah, but the sign of the times is what that is. Sign of the times.
Like, you know, not to like defend it. It's a little harder now because you know, when I was doing that, my mom only worked part-time. Because my dad he's a machinist for International Harvester making tractors.
Oh, okay.
So he made enough for my mom to be home most of the time taking care of us. You know, now you need more than double income. You need like triple income.
Yeah, that's true.
No, you got to work two jobs and your wife or your other has to work at least one or two jobs too to make ends meet.
To make ends meet.
Yeah. It's been tough. Yeah. It's always tough. It's like we're always getting beat up.
Right. No kidding. Yeah.
We're getting into politics.
Yeah. But so that's where your love of martial arts came from. And now let's get into this conversation about Mortal Kombat and video games. So Daniel, before you started working and developing and helping working on Mortal Kombat, how familiar were you with the video game scene prior to doing Mortal Kombat? Like, were you a gamer? Had you played games? How familiar were you with the scene before you started doing Mortal Kombat?
Galaga. I love Galaga. But anyway, so
me too, brother. That's my game.
I'm just even on a phone.
Yeah, man.
I try to sneak it so people don't like say, "What are you playing video games again?" We were just talking about, you know, us like bickering and stuff over, you know, when you're gaming, you're talking trash or stuff like that.
Yeah. So
I used to play D&D and go to video game arcades with John Tobias.
Nice.
So if you can imagine bickering,
now
we created Mortal Kombat because that's what it was. So John is like my brother Carlos's age and a friend of his. They drew together. They're both like artists, and you know, I recall John being at my mom's kitchen table a couple times, drawing with Carlos and a couple other friends, you know, practicing. Because there's also a skill that I admire because I can't do it. So I'm watching them, I'm like, holy cow, you know, everything like that is a skill, you know.
Yeah.
Podcasting, that's a skill. If you're playing guitar, that's a skill. If you're doing martial arts, that's a skill. If you're drawing, that's a skill. If you're a chef, that's a skill. Car mechanic, that's a skill. There's so many things that when you start realizing, when you get in deep, like I was getting deep into martial arts. So when I see other arts that are deep, I'm like, holy cow. That is no way you can be, you know, everybody can taste a few, but you can only really be master of one.
Yeah.
So with me, when I was watching them, you know, doing that stuff, I was just like, always intrigued with it. And, you know, through martial arts, I went to a tournament called Battle of Atlanta down in Atlanta, Georgia. Yeah. And they were looking for people to work on a martial art movie. They didn't want to tell anybody really what it was. And at the time I was competing with Ho Sung in particular, Ho Sung Pak. And we were like, hey, if they approach you, get me in. And then I was like, and if they approach me, get me in. So, you know, Ho Sung runs over to me, hey, I got approached. And I told him about you. So when you're going to go compete, make sure you know, be flashy and do do with your stuff. They're going to take a look at you, and you can get invited to this thing. So
yeah.
So needless to say that like it worked out good. We got invited to do Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2.
Nice.
So we did that movie, and about a couple months, later, John Tobias calls my parents home because still living at home at that time, and life of an actor, you can't afford crap. You're always waiting for the next job.
Yeah, that's what I keep hearing.
You starve to death. You get one job and you wait 8-9 months until the next job.
Yeah.
The famous guys are the very, very few, the 1%, the less than 1%.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So he calls me up and he's like, and two, when we always were goofing around and talking about making projects. Like John wanted to make a kung fu movie and direct us, myself, my brother Carlos, and Rich in particular, to do a kung fu movie that never happened or thing like that. But he's like, hey, congratulations on being in the Turtles. He's like, I work for Midway Games, and he goes, remember when we did the arcade? We used to go arcades and play games. And I was like, yeah, man, Galaga, Centipede, that's me.
Yeah.
Tetris. Hosung loved Pac-Man. Everybody in Mortal Kombat 1, except for Sonya, hung out together way before the day, and we used to play arcades together. Me and Kung Lao would also go.
That's so cool.
It's crazy, right?
Yeah. So we're all geeks.
Yeah.
I still got a box of comic books. Old comic books.
Yeah.
So he's like, hey, I have an idea for a game. I want to do a live action game, but I want you to be in it because you really know martial arts. And that way it will be like a real martial art game. It won't be because we thought, we played Street Fighter back in the day, and I was like, I love Street Fighter, but when I see it, that technique, you can't throw a kick like that because that leg. You know what I mean?
So funny. It's so funny you mentioned Street Fighter because and I can't imagine. And I'll ask you this later. We'll talk more about that later. But yeah, it's so funny. I couldn't imagine being a martial artist and trying to play some of these martial art video games. You're like, no,
that doesn't
how
work.
You do a kick. Or, it's so funny you bring that up. But yeah.
Yeah, but me as a gamer, I would still play it. I would still spend quarters on Street Fighters.
Absolutely.
The kick wasn't real, but the gameplay was.
The game was great.
But we were talking about. I'm playing next to someone, so whether it's one of my friends or somebody who's going to become my friend.
Yep.
Because usually you talk trash, but in the end you want to go play another game, which requires two people. So
right.
That's right.
Go play that game. Okay.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you made another gaming friend. And
that's right.
That's right.
That's the way
I'll meet you here next week at 3 p.m. I want my rematch. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I love that stuff, man. It's so sad that we don't see that anymore. But oh man, when you brought up the whole, I'd like to play with someone next to me, dude. I got you. What's up? You want again? Let's go again. All right.
Oh yeah.
You can't have that no more, man. So I miss it. But yeah, that's amazing. And speaking of Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat, that whole atmosphere, that gaming atmosphere. We've talked about this before, Brian, where that community is so tight knit. You can be playing with a total stranger 10 minutes ago, and now you created a buddy that you're going to be hanging out with for life.
Yeah.
All because you were hanging out and playing with the game, and you started a little bit of trash talk, started a conversation, and now that's your gaming buddy that ends up being, your buddy for life. And that's great. And it's amazing to hear that their guys are all geeks, doing the same thing.
Yeah, man.
Making the movie. That's cool.
So you guys were all geeks, and you guys were essentially already like the family. Essentially, you had that bond, and it wasn't just Mortal Kombat that brought you together. You already had that.
I think that's what kind of in the end, because again, when John was like, "Hey, we're going to make 200 games. It's going to be a filler game, and we're only going to make 200 arcade games, but and I can't pay you a lot because he was like, oh, you just came off of Turtles. I can't pay you like they're going to pay you in a movie." So he was just like, but he goes, anything you want in the game, we'll make it happen. We'll be in the game. And so I was like, okay, let's do this. So first thing he said, I was like, okay, what do we need to do? And he's like, come to my work. I'm gonna videotape you, choreograph some stuff with bring Carlos and Rich, who's Kano and Raiden, and choreograph some fight scene stuff like that, and do some other moves. And then I'm gonna take that and I have some drawings, and I'm going to make a presentation to Midway.
Oh,
And
wow.
so I was like, okay, so when do you want us to work and to show up at your work? And I was thinking like, you know, like in the afternoon or lunch or something like that. So we could get it, hash it out quick. But he was just like, come at 9 o'clock at night, you know, and we're going to be there for a while, show you the place, 9 p.m. when everybody goes home, because I don't want anyone to know this game. I want to make a presentation and be like, okay, this is my idea for a video game.
Right.
So I didn't want anybody to basically steal his idea. Yeah. So I was like, oh, I could see that, because I just came off of, you know, being with a bunch of actors, and we're all kind of, you know, we want to be got all the egos. You want to be want to be like in the movie as much as possible. So yeah, I was like, oh, I could see that, you know, do that.
Yeah.
So again, sorry for the click. I just somebody just told me I just made affiliate on Twitch when we were just talking.
Oh,
about
nice.
Hey!
Oh, yeah, flawless victory.
Breaking
Oh,
news.
affiliate.
Awesome.
Let's go. Hi.
So
Yeah.
Affiliate on Twitch.
Let's
Nice.
go. Welcome. I'm an affiliate too.
You heard
so
it here
welcome,
first.
baby.
You heard it here first, guys.
Yay.
My Twitch, Master D Pesina, pitching my.
Yeah, there you go. We'll put those
cool.
links in the description below here on YouTube
Awesome.
for you.
So I was like, so we made this tape, and he has these drawings, and he showed.
Yeah.
You know, we got to like I played Defender like for 40 minutes for free, because he worked at like Midway, and I didn't have to pay orders, so we're just playing all the video games. We're just like,
nice.
That's awesome.
Job ever. Little did I know that they play games, but mostly they're working all the time. You know, it's really working 20, you know, 3 days straight, which I find out later that John worked like a couple days straight where he didn't get to change his clothes because the work was so intense.
So heavy, yeah.
Yeah, so heavy. You know, he was an only artist, and later on there's 5 programmers. So all the programmers are dropping the work on his desk at the same time to get it done. So he can't go home. He's got to live at that because he's the only artist. But so he makes his pitch, and then he gives me a call a couple days later, and he goes, hey, they like the idea of a fighting game. But the way he said it, I was like, oh, they heard about the fighting game, but somebody has a different idea. Just the way he said it, and knowing John a little bit about it, and I was like, oh, I go, what do we got to do? And he goes, you got to meet with their representative and talk about the game and bring up any ideas how we can make this game super cool and unique and stuff like that.
Right.
And so they can sell the, you know, we can sell them the idea.
Right.
And I was okay. When are we going to do it? And he goes, they'll take you to lunch. This guy will take you to lunch. He's got like he's the manager, so he's got a credit card that he can charge you guys lunch, and you know, bring Carlos and Rich. We're gonna meet at pizza, because I really love pizza.
Man, you are a pizza aficionado, man. We had to talk about that last time I saw you. We were in Louisville, and you went to Boom Baz, and you said you really liked it. And well, I mean, you're in Chicago, though. That makes sense.
Yeah,
it's, you know,
Chicago guy loves pizza,
brother. Yeah. And too, later on with the stories, that also comes into play of how they bribe me to do stuff with pizza. But anyway,
I can see that. Yeah.
Oh man, we got to hear some of those stories one day.
Yeah.
I didn't really realize it, but you know, we had a meeting with this official guy from Midway, and it winds up it's Ed Boon.
Yeah.
So we meet Ed, we kind of shake hands, we sit down. He didn't really, in the meeting, he really didn't say. The only thing he said was, is like, no, we're only going to make 200 arcade cabinets, because I was like, make 201 and give me one, and I'll let you make as many as you want. And then Ed and John are like, no, you know how expensive they are. They're like $4,000, $5,000 at that time, which is, you know, it's the 90s. So, you know, it's like 1990. Right. And so that's a lot of money. So I was just like, we're just talking. And during that meeting, I was like, John was like, you know, we need to make a good presentation and stuff like that. And I was like, John, and I told Ed too, I was like, we need to change the Japanese ninja into the Lin Kuei. And then John and Ed were like, what? Lin Kuei? And I was like, I told them about the Lin Kuei lore, you know, how they mix mysticism with martial arts. Yeah. You know, and they're like, oh, cool. And I was like, oh yeah, we got this book. And John wanted to borrow the book, but when you have a comic book, you never lend it to your friends because you never get it back.
You never get it back. Yeah.
Or not in the same condition. It'll be all
Yeah.
bent up.
Oh yeah. I get it.
I was like, buy your own book. And John's like, we're bickering at the table and as they're watching us bicker because we're friends, but we're like,
yeah, man.
We're just bickering and giving each other shit.
Yeah.
But one of the things that like I was like, no, because the Lin Kuei looked different. Like a Japanese ninja has the straight ninja outfit that everybody's using in the 90s.
Yeah.
The Lin Kuei have this Chinese armor look, what Scorpion looks and Sub-Zero look like, kind of today, or definitely in number 1, but without the color, because again, ninjas are all in black because you can't use yellow and try to hide,
Right. Right.
Yeah, you'll get nailed right away. So that was, among other ideas we were talking about. That's one of the ideas I threw, and I was like, yeah, we change it to Lin Kuei, and it was like, okay, I was like, if you really want me to work on this game, you have to do that. So I forced him to do that, to change in Lin Kuei. So about 2 weeks later, we left the meeting, and and I looked at Ed, and I was like, and at the end I was like, Ed, what do you think? And kind of he just went like this, kind of like he wasn't impressed.
Wow.
Yeah, he was not impressed with the game idea. So I was just like, man, okay, well, we'll see what happens. I go, they don't have too much decision, because if they're going to make a small game, there's not, where else are you going to get basically free help to create a game?
Right.
So, but later on, a couple of weeks later, John calls me up, hey, our game got canceled. There's another idea that they're going to do a mainstream game with Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Wow.
And then I was just like, don't use the Lin Kuei for the bad guys, because I want to really be, have that as part of like something that I am, since I gave that idea.
Yeah.
So John's like, I'll keep you updated, and maybe you can get beat up by Van Damme. And I was just like, and I pay for Van Damme movies, so I am a Van Damme fan, but I don't think Van Damme can really beat me up in real life. But and then I was like, John, as long as you're paying me, he could beat me up all he wants.
Right. Yeah. No doubt. Yeah. Yeah. For sure.
Yeah. So, and then, man, I would say about 6 weeks later, John calls me up. He say, hey, what are you doing? Book. We call each other Book. It's like a Polish slang word because we live in a Polish-Lithuanian neighborhood, where we come from.
Right.
So he's like, Book, they want us to do our game. And I was like, what happened? And he's like, well, Van Damme actually wants money to make his game. They thought they were just going to give him a percentage. He wanted money and a percentage.
Yeah, of course.
Cheap. They're not going to give him that. So they okayed us to do our games, 200 games. And I was like, okay, let's rock.
Let's go. Yeah.
So then it's like John was like, well, we got to create a pathway to the game. We got to figure out how to make the game. So wear some sweats, show up tomorrow, and we're going to just try to see what we come up with. So from there, John and I spent 5 or 6 8-hour days creating what the pathway to Mortal Kombat, what would work, what directions we wanted to he wanted to go to, because it is his creation. He is in the lead, and I was going to collaborate him.
Right.
And show him, help him to create his vision of Mortal Kombat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
During that time, Daniel, is that when the visual started to come together? Like you visualize how Sub-Zero would look, or a particular character would look, Johnny Cage would look, or is that something that came later down the line in development?
John already had basic looks for the characters, and two, he had already at that time he said yes to his agreement, because he agreed for me to the Lin Kuei to be in. So all of a sudden the ninjas did, then one ninja, because there was only going to be Scorpion, which didn't really have a name, but there was only going to be one ninja. All the names came later.
Right.
We used to call Raiden Hat Head, and Kung Lao was called Hat Head too. Everybody had kind of have a nickname. You didn't
That's funny.
Ho Sung's character was Ho. My character didn't have a name. It was Danny. So it was just like, Raiden was Raiden because he always really wanted to have Raiden. The only thing that changed is because the actors who did the movements created the personalities.
Oh.
Yeah.
A lot of people are like, oh, Raiden is like the guy in Big Trouble in Little China. Correct, because Carlos wanted that. John didn't want that, but Carlos was creating it, creating
That's so
that.
cool.
So that's the way it was when you start off one way, but then the guy is like, well, I'm gonna create this.
Right.
This is what inspires me to that creator. So everything was like a collaboration. So the guys who actually worked on the first two games, whether it's Sonya or Kung Lao or Liu Kang, really created those characters, and what these other actors, from the movie or from these other games are acting like this group of friends. Whenever I see it, I'm like, oh, that, you're acting like my brother, or you're acting like Hosang. You're acting like you don't act like Kung Lao, you act like Tony Marquez. You know what I mean? Because
wow, that's so cool.
Really created it. All the other guys are just actors who are acting like us in reality. And it is a reality. It's kind of weird. But anyway, which I'm jealous because I'm a big Christopher Lambert fan from the Highlander. And Christopher Lambert acts like my brother. And I'm like, oh my God.
Oh, that's great.
Geeking out over it, huh? That's so cool.
That's awesome.
That actor of that, of that genre, of that, for us growing up during Highlander and
oh man, great movie.
You know what I mean? For that actor to be portraying my brother is always like, man, you're so
cool. Yeah.
So it was like that. So we spent like 6 days trying to figure out how to make this game. And after that, John was just like, there's a lot of trial and error, and just, trying to, since we're video, I would throw the punch like this about, 20 times. And then I turn it like this a little bit, and then I punch like this. And then I turn it like this, and then punch like this. And then I turn it like this and punch like that. And then we punched all the way around. So all these techniques, we were doing them different ways to take a look at and see how they would register on the camera. And so when you're in a position, trying to do different positions and trying to do different kicks and changing the kick a little bit to see what kind of look it is, it took us a really long time.
I bet.
Looking at it, and John and I would be looking at the video, but about the 6th day, at about 60 hours of working on the game, John was like, we got to get this going. Let's call in Ed, because Ed is going to make the adjustments. Because he's like, Ed will explain to you what we need as far as like what he needs to program the game.
Right.
So when Ed came in, we have already had most of the general moves of the game. Yeah. Like we already had a bit uppercut. We went from an automatic combinations to a simpler combinations just to save memory space. Different things, different kicks, figuring out how to fall the right way, which took that took like forever, because I fell backwards, just kind of get hit, spin out, and just taking a look at it and kind of like, man, no, I don't like the way that looks. And finally, I was just like, it'd be cool if you hit me and I flip my feet back and I land like that.
Yeah.
Everybody does it in the game, and even now everybody does in the game. But yeah, that was like my thing. I was like looking at, nah, that doesn't look good. That's too, you can't really see what's going on and stuff like that. So just creating it. So we brought in Ed, and then made his like adjustments. He was like, okay, he's like, he goes, in actual combat, you got to get near, but this is, I need space, because otherwise they have hitboxes, and if the hitbox is too close, the guy is responding, but you're not doing anything. So he kind of explained this stuff for me, and so he was like, okay, do it, and then he's like out a little bit more, so I would kind of be readjusting and kind of doing that stuff, and he's like, okay, you got the general idea, try to do that with more techniques, and I'll come back tomorrow and take a look at you guys. Yeah. So, he was just like, and two, I think that's what really was good. Like the martial art guy was me. I was in charge of the martial arts. John was the creator. He had the vision. Ed was the programmer, and he would come in and adjust, and then he'd leave and just leave us work on the game. You know what I mean? So I think that's really why, the first game was so iconic, because everybody had their, you didn't have the guy who didn't know martial arts.
That's right.
Teach me martial arts.
Yeah.
I wasn't trying to tell Ed how to program. And we weren't really, and everything we would do had to pass through John, who had the vision, because again, the company turned it down the first round, so they didn't have the vision. But I think that when I started acting and stuff like that, and people would be like, "What are you guys doing? That's so cool." People were like, "Oh my God, this game is going to be great," because when you have to see it physically,
Yeah.
People get like, "Oh, I know what you guys are trying to do. That's so awesome. Oh, that's so cool. Why do you kick like that?" "Oh, because if you kick the other way, you'll really break your leg. So that's why we're not kicking like that."
Yeah.
No matter how cool stuff looks, everything has to have, even the way the projectiles are, except for Sonya's, which I created. Everybody is a martial art move.
That's so cool.
Yeah. So yeah.
And the thing about it is, there was only one other game before that did this. It was called Pit Fighter.
Yeah.
And they actually had, it was the first game to actually use real digitized people. Did you guys take anything from that game going into this game, kind of as okay, they did it this way? Was there any inspiration
or something like that
from that to try to make sure you did it a little bit, try to make sure to do it better than how that game had been done?
What John took from that game was high, medium, low techniques.
Really? Okay.
That's what, because when he watched it, because again, when that game hit, that wasn't like trained fighters. They were, they're guys.
Yeah.
And too, I love Pit Fighter. That's a classic.
That's a classic. Yeah. That's a great game.
Pit Fighters,
Yeah, so, me too. Yeah.
But we were trying to do our own thing and making it like realistic. So John was like, on the first, when we showed up, I was like, "Okay, what do we need to do?" He goes, "We have 3 things. We have high techniques, we have medium techniques, we have low techniques." And then he's like, "I'm going to set up my dad's camera and we're going to just film." The whole first Mortal Kombat was done on John Tobias's dad's camera.
Oh, that's awesome.
How cool is that, right?
I goof around and say, "Oh, it wasn't expensive." It was expensive for a consumer, but
sure.
It wasn't like a $30,000 Betamax camera back in the day. You know what I mean?
Right.
It was John's.
That's so funny. That's so funny.
The best a consumer can buy, but nowhere near a professional.
No doubt, yeah. So I gotta know. So you had the martial arts down, and which is great. They had you there to make sure everybody was doing the moves the right way and make sure that had it down. And you also had your brother as well. So he has that expertise, along with you. What I gotta know is, this was a martial arts game. Where did the fatalities come in at? How did that? Whose idea was the fatalities? And then what was it like shooting those moves? Because they're very intricate fatalities.
Yeah.
So as I recall, John and I were filming stuff. And John was like looking at it, and he's like, "You know what?" And then I'm like, "What?" He goes, "How does this end? I mean, you beat the guy up. You beat the guy up, and he's, and man, it took me forever to create this thing.
It's a staggering motion. Yeah.
It has to be short, and it has to be able to loop.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so different takes, and man, even like that took like half an hour to create. Everybody's like, "Oh, that's easy." No, because we shot it. We shot like this, and then you're just kind of hanging out there like this. And then we look at it like, you're just kind of dead. So then we rock back and forth, and like it looks like you're nothing. So you know what I mean? There's a whole because it's primitive. There's no Photoshop even. So it's like we're just looking at it over and over again. So John looks at me and he's like, "It's just kind of boring. You're just sitting there." He's like, "In the kung fu movies, the guy finishes the other guy."
Yeah. And
he's like, "We got to think of a finishing move." Like he was like, "Can you create a finishing move?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm going to jump up in the air and I'm going to put my fist through his skull. And then when he looks at the camera, he's got a hole in his head." And so we actually shot that. And then John was like, "That might be a lot of work. We got to get this game out."
Yeah.
I could foresee us being a lot of work. Let's keep that. And what else do you want to do? And then I was like, would be cool if he's rocking back like this, and then he falls to his knees, and I come up to him and I just pummel him, and then I knock his head off. And John was just like, "Okay, let's film that." And he's like, "That's a lot of movement." And he's, "Let's keep that. But what do you want to do simple?" And I was just like, "I just want to knock his head off." hit him so hard his head goes flying off. And John's like, okay.
There you go.
That's the whole thing, is him just looking at it and being like, man, it's just like you're just standing there. You gotta have a finishing move.
Right, yeah.
Ready to finish him. And that, so now whenever I see finish him, I'm like, yeah, that's from that whole conversation of
that's
him
so cool.
looking at it and being like, there's something missing. What is that?
Right.
And that's crazy because that is so iconic, finish him. And it's like whenever you hear it, you already know what's going on. And to hear the thought process on how that came about to square it away is just so amazing. I've always loved to hear that stuff. Oh, there it is.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. So then we would always go back because of our martial art competition egos.
Yeah.
The next guy would always try to one up the other guy. And then we would have to come back and do like response or oh, this move is missing. It would grow. The concept would grow, and we'd have to come and refilm. So a lot of times, I was there for 95% of the filming just because.
Oh, I bet. Yeah.
My direction. He was like, martial arts, what we use, what will work. So that way, even though Rich is creating Kano, I could be like, oh, we already used that in Kano. Mm-hmm. And I could be like, but we can turn the foot like this to give it a unique look. So that way, everything doesn't look the same. Everybody has their own personality or their own style of fighting,
Yeah.
So it was like when, luckily a piece of me went into every character. Like I got to help create stuff for Kano. I got to help, we ran into a problem with, when you're on the floor, we do a kip up, where you go on the back and kip up and get back in. But with Raiden, he kept crushing his hat. And John was like, man, we have a problem with that. We can't get it because he falls and he's on top of his hat.
Yeah.
And then he tried to kip up, but the hat falls off. And then I looked at John and I'm like, he's a god. He doesn't need to kip up. He could just teleport up.
Yeah.
And John was just like, that is good. I'm going to do that. So every
Man, that's so cool.
Yeah, every character has a little bit of me in it.
So I gotta ask you, how many takes did you have to do of the nut punch, the iconic splits? How long did it take to get that down to the right take for you?
Man, that took a lot of takes because we just do it. It wasn't just we did it different ways. Like we did it in the front split where you're like this, and then the way it turned out with the side split, but we did it like this, and then we turn it a little bit and try to do it different ways just to see which way it would translate better.
Yeah.
So literally, man, over 50 times. And, if you look at, I posted some footage of the making of, and you see like Ed spreading out some baby powder because eventually my legs got so tired.
Yeah.
I was like, it's hard to control it. So you got to make the floor more slippery so I don't have to control it. So I can just slide into the
slide down.
But that baby powder is from what I use on my rope dart, which wasn't conceived yet. Scorpion's weapon to keep from getting rope burns on your hands. Because if you put baby powder on the rope, it slides through and it doesn't burn your hand as much.
Right.
So that is something like when you see that, I kind of laugh all the time when I see that particular clip because I was like, oh, that's my rope dart bag of baby powder. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like,
that's so funny.
Like the creation and the collaboration of things coming together. But that split took a really long time.
Did you?
Oh man!
Did you guys at the time? By the time you guys had finished making the game, obviously when the game was released in the arcade and then it came to home consoles, and then there was all that controversy as far as the blood and the gore and all that stuff they added into it after you made the game. Did you guys at any point realize you had like lightning in a bottle here with this game? And did you guys ever anticipate that once it was released, it would become the phenomenon that it is even still to this very day, as popular as this game is?
When John first told me about his thing and invited me to help collaborate on the game, I thought it was going to be good. How good, I really didn't know, but I was like, this is not going to be a run-of-the-mill game. I'm going to put my part and I knew John is very creative. Tobias is very creative, and Rich and Carlos. Rich had more to do with more the characters, helping out with other characters. Carlos was, I think he was dating a girl who later on he married, but she wanted more time with him. So he wasn't as, like, he was there for Raiden, but he really wasn't there for the other characters. Rich showed up for the other to help with some of the other characters. So he got some input into Scorpion and Sub-Zero, and he got some input into Liu Kang. You know, so he would be, you know, as far as during the first game, you know, besides John, would be myself next, and then Rich contributing most to the characters, you know, to actual characters like that, at least for the first project. But I thought it was going to be cool, but I knew we had something when people would come by to watch us work.
Yeah.
You know, on the game.
That's crazy.
You know, when people would see us, you know, when they finally got, you know, the Johnny Cage character rolling, Johnny Cage versus Johnny Cage, but it was so cool to see, and people were playing it at Midway, even though they're, you know, to test it out and to see like that, to give Ed some feedback of how to adjust what he was doing, programming wise. But people would be like, oh my God. So they would be like, oh, when's Danny coming into film so we can stop by and watch him? You know,
that's so cool, right? Yeah.
So they were, and I was like, oh man, this is going to be really, really good.
Yeah.
But again, because of our agreement, it was 200. You know, when they pre-ordered 10,000, John came up to me. He's like, hey, they pre-ordered 10,000 games. I looked at John and I was like, John, you told me 200 games.
Mm-hmm.
If you would have gave me a game, you could have done as many as you want, but you didn't. And John was like, don't worry, they're going to take care of you. You know,
nice.
I didn't realize they were going to take care of me like the mafia. because later on these stories, you know, everybody's like, oh, John and Ed are the creators, but really in reality, there's more, you know,
more people behind it. Yeah.
More people, you know,
absolutely.
You know, even Get Over Here. That's not Midway creation. Richard DeVizio created that. Kano created the Get Over Here. A lot of people don't know that. Everybody's like, cool. Oh, that's Ed's voice. Sure, that's Ed's voice.
Yeah.
But that is Richard DeVizio's creation.
Right.
He coined that phrase. He made up that phrase when he was watching me do the rope dart thing. So there's a lot more creators, and I can understand why, because, you know, they didn't think they were going to do 200 games, and then they put us on it. Yeah. And we created something phenomenal, and then now they're going to make money.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going to make money, you want to control the money. I didn't really, when I pitched the game, helped John pitch the game to Midway, I didn't work for Midway. Mm-hmm. So all the ideas I gave him were not covered in any contract, intellectual property. And so I could see why the company is kind of like, oh, you know, because guess what? You don't really, you bought the rights, but it's questionable whether you really own all the rights. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Maybe they do. Maybe they do, but maybe they don't. Because too, again, at that time, there isn't laws to protect artists like there are now. You know, back in the day, you know, the company, you know, it's very libertarian. The company owns everything, you know, everything's for the company. So it's a little different now.
Yeah, for sure. I bet that now that, you know, it's been several years now, you know, since the game's released in the arcade. And then, of course, you had Mortal Monday, where the console came out, or the game came out for the Sega and the Super Nintendo, which made me as a kid insanely happy, because then I didn't have to drop quarters in it anymore. I could go home and play. I could go home and play as much as I wanted to. You know, it's got to be insane for you, you know, it's for these fans to come out. I know, like, you've done conventions in the past, and you know, we talked earlier about, you know, the pandemic, and, you know, we can't do those right now. Hopefully, though, we'll be able to go back to do those at some point this year. But what's it been like? What's life been like for you? Probably, I'd say the past 5 years now, you know, seeing these fans come out in support of your character. You know, you did probably the most iconic characters. You were Johnny Cage, you were Scorpion and Sub-Zero, Reptile. You know, I would say those are probably some of people's most favorite characters. That obviously with, you know, Scorpion probably being the most iconic character.
Iconic, yeah.
And Johnny Cage, of course. What's it been like for you, man, interacting with these fans and them showing their support of what you did so many years ago, that and seeing them come out, probably even dressed up as Johnny Cage or Scorpion and things like that. What's that been like for you, seeing these guys coming out and these fans coming out in support of what you created, what you helped create?
It's really always, it never, I've been asked, does it get tiring if they ask the same questions? No, never. It never does, because it's more, it's not the question. It's the person in front of you that you're talking to.
Yes.
Yeah.
Energy in their eyes, and you see you see the memories. I have like 30 something, 40 something guys all of a sudden 12 years old. And it's like just about like, oh, my best friend and I, we go down, or my cousin and I, or or even kind of weird stories. I've gotten a couple times where I got thank you. I was like, for what? And you go, when I was growing up, my mom and dad would be arguing all the time. Later on they got divorced, but I would be able to go into my room and play Mortal Kombat and not listen to them argue. And I'm like, holy, I didn't really do anything, but they associate that gameplay or that escape, to help them cope with their life at the time with that game. So, and two, it's the age. It's all these people who played the game 10 or 12 are now in their 30s and 40s.
Yep.
And so now they're they can come out to see you at the events, and they can, it's like, oh, they really honor me when they come out, so it's so cool just to talk to them and just to see faces and just go over stories and hear questions, or even just like what we were talking about, just other questions, not only about Mortal Kombat. What's your favorite game? I really love Galaga.
Hey, I don't know if you remember or not, but I won the Galaga tournament last year at Louisville Arcade Expo when we were there. Oh yeah.
I love Galaga, but I'm not very good at it because you guys will probably kill me on that. Brian, you beat me in our one-on-one competition.
I did. I kicked your butt, dude. When we did
I couldn't get up to that six-figure number, man. But
it's really cool for them to to make contact and to and a lot of them are surprised that I'm such a geek. Like, oh yeah, I enjoy video games. I love. Everybody's like, well, what's your favorite? And I was like, a Doom. Doom has always been my favorite.
Oh yeah, Doom is
the old one and on the computer, and the new one. When I used to play it on the Xbox. It's I love those games.
Yeah,
those are so amazing. Cool, man.
No, and you know what? You just hit it right on the head. Those kids that were 10 and 12 and were introduced to Mortal Kombat at that time period. I was one of them.
Yeah,
early 90s. That was me. That was Brian. And influential in our childhood, in our passion for games and martial arts. And, it's a big thank you to everyone behind the Mortal Kombat franchise, because you kickstarted that. And as we've discussed before too, Brian, video games have been an escape for many of us in the early 90s, even to this day.
Yeah.
And regardless of what you are dealing with, in your environment, you find a way to be able to incorporate a game and say, hey, this game helped me get through a tough time. This game helped me maybe, jump my creative juices, or this game made me do this or helped me do that. And you're going to have that from all walks of life, saying, hey, this game helped me fill in the blank. And you're a big part of that, Daniel. And thank you for that, because, I was right there too. I was right there too. In an arcade game saying, dude, I'm just trying to get away for a little bit, trying to just, ease my mind. And here I'm making a buddy for life because I'm playing Mortal Kombat with someone next to me that, hey, let's meet up again next week. Let's meet up next Saturday. Let's chat it up. And, it blooms. Yeah. It's beautiful. And I love it. And I thank you. And I know that the world thanks you for that as well, Danny.
Yeah, thanks. It's good to hear. I usually, too, when they're like, oh, what's it feel like? I'm thankful, but I don't feel like I'm a superstar or anything. I'm just a geek who got a chance to help create like a project. You know what I mean? Just like any of the other like geeks that do this type of work, or just like if you're a musician, isn't only just a songwriter and a composer. It's the musicians, the whole band that really sells that piece of music. Everything is a collaboration, and everything is kind of really a group.
A
lot of gears.
Yeah, and I just to kind of feed off what Victor said here, man. I mean, thank you for sure. I mean, I remember, Mortal Kombat was really the first fighting game that I really got into playing, and I grew up. I grew up in a poor side of town. I grew up in Indianapolis, and we had a grocery store right across the street from my house, and Mortal Kombat was right there when you'd walk in the door. And so I remember, my mom would go grocery shopping, and I was just there in front of that machine the whole time, making friends and making, I guess, frenemies, like those people that, you want to get better at the game than them, but yet, they're like your rival, but yet you have a
rivals,
and that was the place to go. And you have crowds of people behind you, and you just kind of felt like a little celebrity, I guess, because depending on how good you were at the game and stuff. And I remember even just like trading notes because of the fatalities.
That was a thing too.
Fatalities and sharing notes. And I remember I had a little bitty notepad writing down all the fatalities and trading fatality secrets with people and stuff. It just brought so many people together from all walks of life. And and thank you for real, Dan, for that, for giving me those, for helping me have those memories with people growing up. And then even now, being a friend, and you've given me some really good words of wisdom over the last couple of years. The past few years I've known you now. Even just saying happy birthday. It's so cool to have you tell me happy birthday. Even Johnny K said happy birthday to me. That's just the coolest thing ever.
That's good. It's amazing. Right?
And but no, you're a great man, and you have helped so many people. And get through, I'm sure, tough times in their life and things like that, just words of wisdom or guidance, and just giving us this amazing game that millions and millions have had the chance to play and still play even to this day. Has just been an amazing thing that you have helped give us all, and we thank you, man, for real.
Big thank you. Yeah,
we are so appreciative.
Thanks for being a geek and playing it, man.
Hey,
right,
hey, man.
Whatever you want, but if nobody's appreciating it, it doesn't mean anything,
There's times I go into an arcade and I'm like, this ain't an arcade, man. They got Mortal Kombat. Where's Mortal Kombat?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Where's Mortal Kombat? I gotta have Mortal Kombat. You can't, like, I'm like, where's Galaga? I
did that a couple times.
And then where's Mortal Kombat at? Yeah. What the heck, man? Mortal Kombat? What do you guys get Mortal Kombat? I gotta have Mortal Kombat in. But it's been an honor, man.
You gotta have our addictions,
Oh yeah, but it's been an honor. That's about all the time we have to talk with you today, Dan. We appreciate having you on the show, and it was an honor speaking with you. We did have your buddy Paul Niemeyer on the show. That was our first episode back.
Our first on the reboot.
We had him, and we're hoping to get him on the show again too later this year and talk with him more. And Dan, we would love to have you back on, and I'm sure you've got even more stories to tell about.
We gotta hear about how he was bribed with pizza. I gotta hear some of the
stories. And two, I'll send the word out if you guys want, like, Rich or.
Oh, we would love that.
Carlos
we would appreciate that very much. Thank you.
My brother is pretty hard to get an interview just because Warner Brothers holds them really tight. They don't want to.
Yeah.
But Liu Kang or Kung Lao, Kano, naturally Cobalt.
I mean, we could even have a whole roundtable with all you guys.
All together.
We just have you all
amazing,
on here,
right?
We'll just have you guys feed off each other for an hour. That'd be fantastic. But I hope to see you this year, my friend. I hope we can get together.
Yes.
I owe you a drink, brother. We gotta get together again, man. Hopefully this is the year. Hopefully this is the year.
Hopefully.
I had somebody contact me for coming up. End of March, April, they want to have an event, like a small event.
Okay.
So I told them to send me details, and what pay for not, I have no idea, but I'll take a look at it. Get this year started. If it's
dude, I'm ready, man.
Time to get this year started. Yeah.
I'm a huge extrovert, and just being in my house all the dang time, it's killing me. It's killing me. I miss conventions, and I miss seeing my people, and I hope we can get back to some of that normalcy.
You're not the only one, man. You're not the only one.
Yeah.
but in parting, just anybody listening to this, remember, that these are tough times, but you could always reach out to one of us if you really need somebody to talk to, or because of social media,
Yes, definitely.
Messenger, and we're together. Wear your mask, try to take care of each other. Even you might not believe in the mask, but wear it for somebody else.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah, better to be safe than sorry. For me personally, because my parents are so old. My dad is actually 95 today. Today is his birthday.
Oh, wow.
Tell your dad
95. Happy birthday.
That's old.
Yeah.
Around. So,
Absolutely.
my mom and dad around, they were really old. So, just kind of, remember, it's not always about you're, a lot of people are like, oh, but it's my freedom. Well, think of other people's freedom, because if they get sick or die, you're really affecting their freedom too.
Yes.
We're not jerks. We're all gamers. We're definitely not all jerks. Just take a moment. I think a lot of times with this, when I talk to friends who have a different point of view, I'm just like, just take a moment, and they're like, yeah, you're right. I might not, but it might make somebody else comfortable, and it's no big sweat for me. And I'm like,
yeah,
what?
definitely.
Don't sweat it. Yeah, just be kind.
I mean, look, I look at it like this. The thing is, we're not going to get into politics or anything like that. I hate talking about that anyway. but honestly, it's the small sacrifices that we got to make in life, and this is not the only thing. Life is about making those small sacrifices, and to do something so small as this is not going to be the hardest thing that you're going to have to
That's
do.
right.
And for people like your parents, they're at that age where they're considered high risk because of how old they are. And I lost my step grandfather because of COVID last year, and he was older, and I've had to talk to people about it, and I'm like, yeah, sure, he had all these other issues, but he could have lived longer. Right? I mean,
a couple more days. When you realize that,
yeah, man.
Especially when you get older, like, thank everybody who's watching this Dragoncast, because they're taking their time, and time is precious. When you get older, you realize, man, I don't really have a lot of time,
Yeah.
Just working, you're trying to do this, or you're trying to produce this, and you already got 8 hours of production to go into this, plus you got to work 8 hours, and then you sleep 8 hours.
Your time is very valuable the older you get.
And then you're going to realize, like, oh crap, I don't have 36 hours in a day, right? Time is precious. So, everybody listening out there, thanks for your time. And then again, take the time for other people, man. Just chill out.
So, the older you get,
wise words.
The older you get, the more valuable the more precious your time should be. Yeah. So, but yeah, man, I appreciate you making that statement, because we're about that here. We don't hide it. I know I don't hide it. I don't hide it, Dan. he sees me. but yeah, I mean, I'm glad you brought that up. We appreciate that. And as Dan says here, we thank all of our viewers for watching this show today. And
yep.
That's whether you're on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, and then of course video versions are always on YouTube whenever we have a guest such as Dan on the show. We do appreciate you. Dan, we'll leave some links at the bottom of the description here on YouTube for your Twitch. So go follow him. He is now an affiliate, so you can give him money. You can subscribe to him. Throw all that money on Dan, man. Just give him your subscription.
Dude, I was like, until I started doing it, man, we're talking forever. Really quick.
Yeah, what's this like? What's this been like with you for Twitch, man?
Yeah. You're on Twitch, and then you're like, oh, I got to buy a camera. Oh, the cameras are like $100. Oh, I got to buy something else. Oh, that's $100. No wonder you have to charge for Twitch, because it takes you got to need a nice microphone. Oh, yeah. $100 is a good microphone. If you want a nice one, you got to spend $500.
Oh yeah, man. Oh yeah.
No wonder you get money on Twitch, because it just goes all back to being able to be on Twitch.
Yeah.
And see now that you're an affiliate, you can have an emote. So you can make a really cool a thing of your face, and people can use it in your channel, all that stuff. So, oh man, yeah. Oh, I'm so happy.
Looking forward to all that good stuff, man.
You got that affiliation now. That's sweet, man. That's gonna open some more doors for you.
It just means more work. From what I
it means more work. Down the line just means more work.
Like, oh, now you gotta do more work. Oh man, what? No.
to you, because to you guys, because man, it is freaking a lot of work. I just come on here and chat and just hang out with my friends, you two guys for an hour or so, and then I'm done. But after this is done, you guys got to do your work.
Oh, dude, I got it. Yeah, I it's crazy because I have 2 YouTube channels I do content for. One, the DragonBlogger, which is where this will be on YouTube, and then I have my own YouTube channel, which I'm almost at 1,000 subs. So go to the domain.
Yeah, way to go, man.
Channel. So we're and that's my gaming content channel, which I do. And then I do, I'm going to be doing Twitch. So I'm telling you, man, I'm a busy man. Like, I got to produce. And then my wife and we have our own podcast, which we're going to be doing later tonight. So I got 2 podcasts I produce, and I do all the editing, everything for. And then I do 2 YouTube channels, which I also do some editing content for. I'm a busy man, dude.
Love it. It's for the love. It's for the love.
But it's
the passion. It's the passion is what it is.
But you don't see it as work if it's something you're passionate about, right? If you're having fun and you're doing that, it doesn't seem like work to you. So, it's fun. But thank you so much, Dan, for being on the show. And as always, if you're watching on Apple Podcasts, leave us a review if it's or a 5-star review if you feel like we've earned it. Leave us some comments in the comments section below. What do you think about this episode? And if you want to, if you have a question from Mr. Pesina here, we'll leave those in the comments below, and I'll send them to him, and maybe he'll answer a few of those as well. But thank you guys for watching, and we will see you next time. Take it easy, guys. Later.
Thank you, guys.
And
later.
Remember, 5 stars or you're gonna
get caged. Yeah. We'll see you guys.
I love it.
Oh,
see ya.
Bye.